I was staring at the brown leather wallet sitting in the top drawer of the nightstand. It was perfectly intact, the edges worn smooth from use, his driver's license grinning up at me through the little plastic window. It was 9:47 p.m. 30 seconds earlier, my phone had lit up with a frantic text from my boyfriend, Asher. "Babe, nightmare scenario. Wallet's gone, no cash, no cards. Stranded across town. Crashing at Simone's place tonight. Don't panic." He wasn't lost. He wasn't stranded. And he definitely wasn't panic-stricken. He was comfortable, he was lying, and he had made the fatal mistake of thinking I was too tired to check the one place he always left his things. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The text had come through while I was scraping a coagulated mess of half-eaten eggs and solidified grits off a plate at the Rusty Spoon. It was the kind of diner that smelled permanently of old fryer oil and despair, the scent seeping into your pores until you smelled like a walking French fry even after 2 showers. I had been on my feet since 6:30 a.m. We were short-staffed because Crystal had called out with food poisoning, which we all knew meant she was hungover from the frat party down the street, so I was pulling a double. My feet weren't just hurting, they were throbbing with a distinct rhythmic pulse that seemed to sync up with the flickering fluorescent light above the pass-through window. That light had been dying for 3 weeks. Every time it buzzed, I felt a twitch behind my left eye. "Chloe, order up on table 6. Don't let those hash browns get cold. They get soggy and then old man Jenkins gets grumpy." My manager, Rick, barked from the kitchen. Rick was a man who believed that shouting was a form of leadership and that hairnets were merely a suggestion. "I got it, Rick," I yelled back, grabbing the heavy ceramic plates. My wrist twinged. Carpal tunnel was probably in my future, assuming I had a future that didn't involve serving bottomless coffee to truckers at 2 a.m. I dropped the plates at table 6. Jenkins didn't even look up from his crossword puzzle and wiped my hands on my apron. It was stiff with dried coffee stains and grease. I fished my phone out of my back pocket, hiding it behind my hip so Rick wouldn't see. I just wanted to check the time. I was praying it was at least 9:30, meaning I only had 30 minutes of cleanup left before I could limp home. That's when I saw it. The message from Asher. "Babe, nightmare scenario. Wallet's gone, no cash, no cards, stranded across town. Crashing at Simone's place tonight. Don't panic." I stared at the screen. The kitchen noise, the clatter of silverware, the hiss of the grill, the dishwasher chugging like a dying train, seemed to drop away into a muffled hum. My first instinct, the one conditioned by 3 years of supporting his dreams, was a spike of adrenaline. Poor Asher. He was helpless without his cards. He'd be stressed. He hated asking for help. I almost typed back immediately, "Oh my God, are you okay? Do you need me to Venmo Simone for your food?" But my thumb hovered over the keyboard. I didn't type. I read it again. Nightmare scenario. Asher loved that phrase. He used it when the barista got his oat milk latte order wrong. He used it when the Wi-Fi was slow. Crashing at Simone's. Simone. The name tasted like battery acid. She was the friend from his old marketing internship. The one who lived in the Meridian, that glass needle of a building downtown where the rent for a studio cost more than my entire year's earnings. The one who always touched his forearm when she laughed. The one who Asher insisted was just a mentor and that I was being territorial whenever I brought her up. "Everything okay, Chloe? You look like you just swallowed a bug." I looked up. It was heavy-set Brenda, the night shift cook, wiping her hands on a towel. She was looking at me with that weary, seen-it-all expression that women in diners develop after age 50. "Yeah," I said, my voice sounding tinny and far away. "Just, Asher lost his wallet. He's stuck downtown." Brenda grunted, turning back to the grill to scrape down the carbon buildup. "Funny how men always get stuck in the places they want to be, ain't it?" Her words hit me like a wet towel to the face. I looked back at the phone. Don't panic. It wasn't a reassurance, it was a command. It was a preemptive strike to keep me from asking questions. Don't worry, Chloe. Don't check up on me, Chloe. Just go home to our crappy apartment and sleep off your 14-hour shift. Yeah, I whispered to the grease-stained screen. Funny. The walk up the 3 flights of stairs to our apartment felt like climbing Everest with lead weights strapped to my ankles. The elevator had been out of order since August. It was October. The management company had put up a sign that said "Parts on Order," which was landlord code for "We are waiting for you to move out or die." I unlocked the door, jiggling the key in the way you had to. Pull back slightly, twist left, then shove. The lock clicked, and I pushed into the stale air of the apartment. It smelled of the trash we hadn't taken out and the lingering dampness of the bathroom, where the ventilation fan had died 6 months ago. "Asher," I called out, purely out of habit. The silence that answered me was heavy. It wasn't just empty, it was vacuous. The apartment felt like a shell. I dropped my keys on the laminate counter, wincing at the loud clack. I walked into the bedroom. The bed was unmade, a tangle of cheap gray sheets. Asher's side was messy, a testament to his morning routine of waking up at 11 a.m. and rushing out to network. I sat on the edge of the bed, my feet throbbing. I pulled out my phone again. 9:47 p.m. Wallet's gone. I looked at the nightstand on his side of the bed. It was a cheap particle board thing we'd bought at a thrift store and painted black to look modern. It was cluttered with empty LaCroix cans and a stack of business cards for his consulting firm, which currently had 0 clients. I wasn't suspicious yet. Not really. My brain was still trying to solve the logistical problem of his lost wallet. Does he have his passport? Does he have a backup card? Maybe he left some emergency cash in the drawer. I reached over and pulled the drawer open. The metal runners squeaked, a high-pitched protest in the quiet room. And there it was, lying on top of a stack of unopened mail and a tangled white charging cable. The brown leather wallet I had bought him for our 2nd anniversary. It wasn't hidden. It wasn't buried. It was just sitting there, arrogant and brown in leather. I stared at it. I blinked, thinking maybe I was hallucinating from exhaustion. I reached out and touched it. The leather was cool and smooth. It was real. I picked it up. It had weight. I flipped it open. There was his driver's license. There was his debit card. There was the credit card I paid off every month because he was building credit for our future. There was even a $20 bill tucked in the back flap. Snap. It wasn't a sound in the room. It was a sound inside my chest. It was the sound of a bone setting or maybe breaking. The mental gymnastics I had been performing for 3 years, the "he's just stressed," the "he's trying his best," the "you're being paranoid," all of it collapsed instantly. He wasn't across town frantically searching his pockets. He wasn't helpless. He had deliberately left his wallet here. He had planned this. He had crafted the crisis of the lost wallet to create an unimpeachable excuse to sleep at Simone's. Crashing at Simone's tonight. Don't panic. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was so beaten down by my double shifts, so exhausted by carrying the financial weight of 2 adults, that I would just accept it. He thought I would read that text, sigh, eat a bowl of instant ramen, and go to sleep. I looked at the wallet in my hand. Then I looked at the mirror on the closet door. I saw myself. Messy bun falling apart, grease stains on my shirt, dark circles under my eyes that looked like bruises. I looked like a victim. I closed the wallet. The snap was audible this time. "No," I said to the empty room. "Not tonight." I stood up. The pain in my feet was gone, replaced by a cold, vibrating energy that felt like I had plugged my nervous system into a wall socket. I walked to the hall closet and ripped it open. I dug past the vacuum cleaner we never used and the winter coats, pulling out a large, flattened Amazon box from a delivery I'd gotten months ago, probably for something Asher needed. I taped the bottom of the box shut. The sound of the packing tape screeching off the roll was violent, ripe, slap, smooth. I marched back into the bedroom. I put the box on the bed and looked at the wallet. I tossed it in. It hit the bottom with a dull thud. Item 1. I looked around the room. Suddenly, I didn't see our shared life. I saw a museum of my own stupidity. Every surface was covered in evidence of my financial martyrdom. I picked up the Apple Watch charging on the dresser. I had worked 6 overtime shifts to buy that for his birthday because he said he needed it to track his productivity and biorhythms. It was dead. He hadn't worn it in 3 weeks because the band chafed. Thud into the box. I went to the bathroom. On the shelf sat a bottle of Santal 33 cologne. It cost $200. I had eaten peanut butter toast for dinner for a month to afford it because he wanted to smell like success for his meetings. The bottle was 90% full. Clunk into the box. I walked back to the bookshelf. I grabbed the stack of hardcover books he insisted on having. Atomic Habits, The 4-Hour Work Week, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all brand new, spines uncracked. He listened to podcasts he didn't read. I had paid for every single one. Thud, thud, thud. I opened his sock drawer to check for anything else. My hand brushed against paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt, crumpled, faded, but legible. The Velvet Lounge. Date, October 4th. Time, 11:42 p.m. 2 old fashions. 1 Pinot Noir, 1 truffle fries. Total, $68.50. October 4th. I froze. October 4th was a Tuesday. I had been working the late shift. Asher had told me he was helping his friend Mason move a couch and that Mason was going to buy him pizza. Mason moving a couch, I whispered, reading the receipt. Since when did moving furniture involve truffle fries and Pinot Noir at nearly midnight? And since when did Mason drink wine? Mason was a Pobst Blue Ribbon guy. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the receipt. High definition. Flash on. Then I crumpled the receipt and threw it into the box. I went to the closet. The vintage denim jacket I bought him because he wanted to look rugged. The expensive Nikes he needed for the gym he never went to. The noise-canceling headphones he needed for deep work. I stripped the room. I was a tornado of Repo Man efficiency. I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was just collecting my equity. The box was full now. It was heavy. It was filled with about $3,000 of my hard-earned money and 3 years of wasted affection. I looked at it. It looked like trash. I carried the box to the kitchen table. It was heavy, awkward, the flaps trying to pop open. I grabbed the packing tape again. Ripe slap. I sealed it shut. I sealed it like I was containing nuclear waste. I went over the seams twice. Then I grabbed a thick black Sharpie from the junk drawer, the one drawer in the house that was truly honest about what it contained. I wrote on the top of the box in massive, jagged block letters, for Asher. I stood back and looked at it. It wasn't enough. I uncapped the marker again and added underneath, since you're staying the night. I checked the time. 10:15 p.m. I opened the Uber app on my phone. My battery was at 14%. Of course. I typed in the destination, the Meridian Apartments. The price popped up, $42.50. I stared at the price. That was 4 hours of work after taxes. That was my grocery budget for half the week. A rational person would hesitate. A rational person would wait until morning. A rational person would talk this out. I hit confirm ride. I am not rational tonight, I muttered. Tonight I am expensive. I grabbed my coat. It was a thin, pilled wool thing I'd had since college. I looked at the door. 2 overdue notices for the electric bill were taped to the fridge with a magnet that said, "Hang in there," featuring a cat dangling from a branch. I ripped the notices down and shoved them in my pocket. I picked up the box. It dug into my hip bone. I walked out of the apartment. I didn't lock the door. I didn't care who got in. There was nothing left of value inside anyway. I was carrying it all in a cardboard box. I took the stairs down. The stairwell smelled of wet concrete and someone's pot smoke. On the second-floor landing, I passed Mrs. Dominguez's door. I could hear her TV blaring a telenovela. I usually stopped to say hi if I saw her, but tonight I kept my head down, my boots stomping a furious rhythm on the metal treads. I burst out onto the street. The night air was biting, damp and cold. It smelled of exhaust and impending rain. A silver Toyota Camry pulled up to the curb. The license plate matched my app. The driver, a guy named Earl, according to his profile, looked at me through the passenger window. He looked at the box. He looked at my diner uniform. He unlocked the doors. I slid into the back seat, maneuvering the box so it sat on the seat next to me. I buckled it in. Safety first. "Heading downtown?" Earl asked. He had a gravelly voice and eyes that watched me in the rearview mirror with mild curiosity. The car smelled aggressively of artificial pine, radiating from a little tree dangling from the mirror. "Yeah," I said. "The Meridian." "Fancy place," Earl commented. He pulled away from the curb, merging into the sparse Tuesday night traffic. "Delivering a package?" "Something like that," I said. I turned my head to look out the window. We drove in silence after that. I watched the city transform. We started in my neighborhood, the Rose, where the streetlights were amber and dim, and the storefronts had metal grates pulled down over them. Liquor stores, check-cashing places, a laundromat with a broken sign. This was where Asher and I lived because it was gritty and authentic, according to him. It was cheap and dangerous, according to me. As we crossed the bridge, the scenery shifted. The buildings got taller, the glass got cleaner. The streetlights changed to a crisp, clinical white LED. We were entering the financial district. I caught my reflection in the dark glass of the window. I looked ghostly. My face was pale, my eyes dark holes. I felt like I was dissociating, like I was watching a movie about a girl named Chloe who was about to blow up her life. Is this crazy? The thought bubbled up. Maybe I should just turn around. Maybe I should just wait until he comes home tomorrow and confront him then. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really did lose the wallet and I just missed something. My hand drifted to my pocket. I touched the cold leather of the wallet I had shoved in there at the last second. I hadn't packed the wallet in the box. I needed it for the finale. No, I wasn't wrong. The wallet was real. The lie was real. We turned a corner, and there it was, the Meridian. It rose out of the pavement like a middle finger made of glass and steel. It was 50 stories of arrogance. Light spilled out of the lobby, illuminating the perfectly manicured shrubs in concrete planters. "Here we are," Earl said, pulling into the circular driveway. "You need help with that?" "No," I said. "I've got it." I unbuckled the box. I opened the door and stepped out onto the pavement. It was clean here. The air didn't smell like garbage. It smelled of nothing. Sterile. I slammed the car door. Earl drove off, leaving me standing alone at the base of the fortress. I took a deep breath, adjusted my grip on the box, and marched toward the entrance. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, admitting me into a lobby that was bigger than my entire apartment building. The floors were marble, polished to a mirror shine that squeaked under my grease-slicked non-slip shoes. There was a fountain in the center. A fountain. Indoors. I headed for the elevators, but a voice stopped me. "Excuse me, miss, you can't just walk back there." I turned. Behind a massive desk that looked like a slab of obsidian sat the concierge. His name tag said Arthur. He was wearing a suit that fit better than anything Asher had ever owned. He was looking at me, at my messy hair, my stained apron. I realized I hadn't taken it off, and my battered cardboard box with the kind of polite disdain reserved for cockroaches in fine dining establishments. "Delivery for Unit 42B, I said, projecting a confidence I didn't feel. "Simone." I didn't know her last name. I hoped Simone was enough. Arthur raised an eyebrow. He didn't check a computer. He just looked at me. "Deliveries are to be left at the desk. We will notify the resident." "It's personal," I said. "She's expecting it." "Then she would have put your name on the guest list," Arthur said smoothly. "Name?" "Chloe," I said. "Chloe Smith." He typed something on his keyboard, though I suspected he was just playing solitaire. "I have no Chloe Smith authorized for Unit 42B. Leave the box here, miss." This was it. The wall. I could leave the box here, but then Asher might intercept it, or Simone might just have the staff throw it out. I needed to see her face. I needed to know she got it. I looked at Arthur. I needed a lie, a good one. "Look, Arthur," I said, stepping closer and lowering my voice. I leaned the heavy box on the edge of his pristine desk. "It's not just a package. It's medical." Arthur blinked. "Medical?" "Insulin," I lied. "Her fridge broke. She called me frantically. It's in a cooler inside this box. If I leave it here and it sits for an hour while you guys process it, it spoils. And if she goes into shock tonight because her meds were warm, I'm telling her you stopped me." I stared at him. It was a ridiculous lie. Who ships insulin in an old Amazon box? But Arthur was a concierge at a luxury building. His job was to avoid liability and hassle. The word shock made him twitch. He looked at the box. He looked at me. He weighed the risk of me being a homeless person invading the building against the risk of a wealthy tenant suing him for medical negligence. "Unit 42B?" he asked, his voice tight. "42B," I confirmed. "I'll be 5 minutes. I just need to hand it to her and leave." He sighed, a long, suffering exhale through his nose. He reached under the desk and tapped a button. "Elevator C. Scan this fob." He slid a plastic card across the marble. "You have 10 minutes before it deactivates and security is alerted. Do not wander." "You're a lifesaver, Arthur," I said, snatching the fob. "Just go," he muttered, already sanitizing the spot on the desk where I'd leaned the box. The elevator ride was smooth and fast. My ears popped. The interior was mirrored, forcing me to look at myself from every angle. I looked insane. I looked like a woman on the edge. Ding. Floor 42. The doors opened into a hallway that smelled of expensive vanilla candles and hushed money. The carpet was thick enough to swallow my footsteps. I walked down the hall, scanning the numbers. 42A, 42B, corner unit, of course. I stood in front of the dark wood door. I set the box down on the doormat, which simply said "Welcome" in elegant script. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This is it. No turning back. I raised my hand and knocked. 3 hard, sharp raps. Knock, knock, knock. I waited. I heard footsteps. Light, soft footsteps. Not Asher's heavy tread. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Simone stood there. She looked effortless. That was the only word for it. She was wearing cream-colored cashmere lounge pants and a matching oversized sweater that looked softer than a baby duck. Her hair was in a perfect messy bun. Not the actual messy bun I had, but the stylistic kind that takes 20 minutes to achieve. She was holding a glass of red wine. She looked at me, confusion knitting her perfect eyebrows together. Then her eyes dropped to my uniform, then to the box. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her voice was pleasant, polite. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? I was just the background noise in Asher's life. "You're Simone?" I asked. My voice surprised me. It was steady, cold. "Yes," she said, taking a half step back, gripping her wine glass tighter. "Who are you?" "I'm Chloe," I said. She blinked. The name registered. I saw the flash of recognition in her eyes, followed immediately by panic. She glanced nervously over her shoulder, back into the apartment. "Chloe?" she whispered. What are you doing here?" Asher said he was stranded," I interrupted. "He said he lost his wallet. He said he had no choice but to crash here." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the wallet. I held it up like a police badge. "He lied," I said. "Found this in his nightstand. He's not stranded, Simone. He's just here." Simone's face drained of color. She looked from the wallet to my face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "And this," I said, nudging the box with my foot, "is everything I ever bought him that he didn't appreciate. The watch, the cologne, the books. It's all yours now." Simone stammered. "I didn't know. He told me you guys were roommates. He said you broke up months ago." "Yeah," I said. He says a lot of things. I pulled up the photo of the receipt on my phone, the truffle fries and wine receipt, and shoved the screen toward her face. Ask him about the Velvet Lounge on October 4th while you're at it. Ask him which friend he was helping move furniture. Simone stared at the screen. Her hands started to shake. The wine sloshed dangerously close to the rim. He's inside, isn't he? I asked. Simone nodded, mute. Great, I said. Well, he's your problem now. Congratulations. You won the prize. I turned around. Wait, Simone called out. Her voice was shrill now, the cool facade gone. You can't just leave this here. Watch me, I said over my shoulder. I walked back toward the elevator. I didn't look back. I heard her door close, but I didn't hear the lock click. I stepped into the elevator and hit the lobby button. The doors slid shut, sealing me in with my reflection again. As soon as the car started moving, the adrenaline crashed. My knees buckled. I had to grab the handrail to keep from sliding to the floor. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't have opened a jar if my life depended on it. I gasped for air. It felt like I had just run a marathon. I did it. I actually did it. I looked at the floor indicator. 35. 28. 20. A laugh bubbled up in my throat. It was a jagged, hysterical thing. I had just delivered a box of trash to a millionaire's doorstep. I had just told off the woman who had everything. But underneath the hysteria, there was terror. What have I done? I had just burned my life down. Asher was gone. The rent, the bills, being alone. Ding. Lobby. I straightened up. I fixed my apron. I wiped the sweat from my upper lip. I walked out past Arthur. He was helping an elderly couple with their luggage. He saw me without the box. He gave me a sharp nod, one professional to another. "Have a good night," I said to him as I passed. "Good night, miss," he replied. I walked out the automatic doors into the cold night. I fumbled for my phone to call another Uber. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped it on the pavement. I picked it up. Screen cracked in the corner. Perfect. I ordered the ride. Earl was busy, so I got Vlad. I stood on the curb, hugging myself against the wind. I felt light, terrifyingly, exhilaratingly light, like I was floating, or maybe falling. The ride back was a blur. I stared out the window, but I didn't see anything. I just saw Simone's face, the shock, the realization. When I got back to my apartment, it was almost midnight. The silence was different now. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. I locked the door. The lock I still had a key to. The lock Asher still had a key to. I dragged a kitchen chair and wedged it under the doorknob. It was a movie cliché, but it made me feel better. I sat on the couch. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat in the dark, my phone in my hand, waiting. I knew it was coming. The fallout. At 12:42 a.m., the screen lit up. Incoming call. Asher 3. I stared at the smiling photo of him I had set as his contact image, a picture from a beach trip where I paid for the Airbnb. He looked so happy, so innocent. I let it ring. It stopped. Then a text. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Then another. "You showed up at Simone's? Are you insane? Pick up the phone. You embarrassed me. You embarrassed her. You acted like a complete psycho." I watched the bubbles appear and disappear as he typed furiously. "We need to talk. Now. You can't just dump my stuff and leave." "I can explain the wallet. You didn't give me a chance to explain." I let out a short, dry laugh in the dark. Explain the wallet. I couldn't wait to hear that creative writing exercise. "Stop ignoring me, Chloe. You're being childish. I'm coming home. Unblock the door." Panic spiked in my chest. Coming home. I typed my first and only response of the night. "Don't bother. The chair is under the knob. And if you try to get in, I'm calling the cops and showing them the texts where you admitted to being at Simone's while claiming to be stranded. Trespassing is not a good look for an entrepreneur." The typing bubbles appeared. Stopped. Appeared. Stopped. He didn't come home. I sat there until 3 a.m. watching the phone buzz. He called 12 times. He sent 43 texts. They ranged from, "I'm sorry, baby, I panicked," to "You're a crazy bitch," and back to "Please, let's talk." I screenshotted every single one. Click, 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 evidence. I fell asleep on the couch sitting up. I woke up at 7 a.m. with a stiff neck and the sun glaring directly into my eyes through the blinds Asher had broken 3 months ago. For a second, I forgot. Then I saw the chair wedged under the door. Right. My life is over, and it's just beginning. I stood up. My body ached, but my mind was clear. First things first, coffee. I made a pot of the cheap Folgers we had. I drank it black because we were out of oat milk. Asher finished it. At 8 a.m. sharp, I Googled emergency locksmith. I called the first number. A guy named Eddie answered. "I can be there in an hour," Eddie said. "It's going to be $180 for a rush job and 2 new deadbolts." $180. That was my electric bill money. "Do it," I said. Eddie arrived at 8:55. He was a small guy with a tool belt that jingled. He didn't ask questions. He looked at the chair under the doorknob, looked at my face, and got to work. The sound of the drill grinding into the metal was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. While Eddie worked, I went digital. I opened Venmo, blocked Asher. I opened Instagram, blocked Asher, blocked Simone. I opened TikTok, blocked. Facebook, blocked. I went through my photos. There were thousands of them. Us at dinner, us at the park, him sleeping. I didn't delete them, not yet. I moved them all to a hidden folder named Evidence. Eddie finished at 9:30. He handed me 2 shiny brass keys. "New keys to the kingdom," he said, wiping his hands on his pants. "Nobody gets in unless you want them to." I paid him. My bank account balance dropped to double digits. I locked the door from the inside. Click. I turned around and looked at the apartment. It was still full of his ghost, his protein powder on top of the fridge, his towel on the bathroom floor. I grabbed a black garbage bag from under the sink. I went room by room. Anything that wasn't worth selling went in the bag. The protein powder, the towel, the half-empty styling gel, the ugly painting his mom gave us. I dragged the bag to the front door. I was broke. I was single. I was exhausted. But for the first time in 3 years, I was the only one holding the key. 3 days after the lock change, I was sitting on my kitchen floor eating dry cereal out of the box because I hadn't gone grocery shopping yet. My bank account was hovering at 4218s. My phone buzzed against the linoleum. It was a vibrating drill sound that made my teeth ache. Unknown caller. I stared at it. I had been getting calls from random numbers all week. Asher trying to bypass the block, probably using borrowed phones or Google Voice numbers. I usually let them ring into the void, but this one kept ringing and ringing. I picked it up. "If this is Asher," I said, my mouth full of stale cornflakes, "I'm recording this call for the police report." There was a pause, a shaky intake of breath. "It's not Asher," a woman's voice said. It sounded small, brittle. "It's Simone." I stopped chewing. I swallowed the dry flakes painfully. "Simone," I said flatly, "if you're calling to tell me I ruined your carpet with that box, I really don't care." "No," she said. "No, I wanted to thank you." I blinked at the kitchen cabinet. "Excuse me?" "For the box," she said. Her voice cracked. "And the receipt. After you left, I didn't want to believe you. I really didn't. He was so convincing, Chloe. He told me you were his crazy ex-roommate who was obsessed with him. He said the receipt was for a business dinner with a client." "Of course he did," I said. "He's good at that." "But I couldn't let it go," she continued. "I checked the timestamps on the messages he sent me that night. October 4th. He told me he was at his grandmother's wake. He said he couldn't text because he was comforting his mom." "His grandmother died in 2018, I said automatically. "I went to the funeral. It was in Ohio." "I know," Simone whispered. "I found the obituary online. That's when I started digging. Really digging. I heard the sound of liquid being poured on her end. Wine. Definitely wine. It was 11:02 a.m. "Chloe, it's not just us," she said. The words hung in the air, heavy and wet. "What do you mean?" "The Grand Hotel," she said. "Does that mean anything to you?" "No," I said. "It's that fancy place near the stadium, right?" "He's been tagging himself there on a private Instagram account I found," she said. The handle was hidden in his business folder on his phone. I guessed the password. It was Entrepreneur88. I snorted. God, he's a cliché. "There's a hostess there," Simone said. "Her name is Riley. She's 22. According to his DMs, they've been seeing each other for 6 months. He tells her he's a venture capitalist who travels for work." My stomach dropped. Not because I was heartbroken, that part of me had died the night I found the wallet, but because of the sheer scale of the deception. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a lifestyle. 6 months? I asked. "That overlaps with everything." "Everything," Simone confirmed. "You, me, Riley, probably others. He's been running a rotation. I did the math, Chloe. Tuesday nights he was with you, Thursdays he was with me. Weekends were flexible." I leaned my head back against the cabinet door. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Simone said, her voice hardening into something jagged. "I dumped him this morning. Security escorted him out. But before he left, he tried to borrow money from me. He said you stole his assets and he needed a bridge loan." "I stole his trash," I corrected. "I know," she said. I thought you should know about Riley, in case you needed more ammo." "Thanks, Simone," I said, and I meant it. "Burn him down, Chloe," she said. Then the line went dead. That night, I turned my apartment into a war room. I pushed the kitchen table against the wall. I opened my laptop, which was missing the S key and sounded like a jet engine taking off. I logged into my bank account. I'd never really looked at the numbers. Not closely. I was always too afraid to look. I lived in a state of perpetual financial anxiety where checking the balance felt like looking directly at the sun. But tonight, I put on my reading glasses, drugstore brand plus 150, and opened a new spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, description. Column C, amount. Column D, the lie. I started with the rent. For the last 18 months, I had paid the full $1,200. Asher was supposed to pay $600. Total rent arrears, $10,800. I knew I'd never see that money since his name wasn't on the lease, but I listed it anyway for my own rage. Then I went to Venmo. I scrolled back 3 years. March 12th. Sent Asher $200. Note, car repair. Paying you back Friday. April 4th. Sent Asher $150. Note, groceries for the week. June 10th. Sent Asher $500. Note, investment for the merch drop. Guaranteed returns. I cross-referenced every transaction with my text messages. It took hours. My eyes burned. The coffee I was drinking had gone cold and developed a skin on top, but I kept sipping it. I found a pattern. Every time he asked for money, there was a crisis, a flat tire, a stolen phone, a bank error, and then I found the big one. August 15th. Withdrawal, $800. Description, ATM, Casino Royale. I froze. Casino Royale? That wasn't a bank. That was that sketchy riverboat casino 2 towns over. I checked my texts from August 15th. Asher, babe, huge opportunity. My crypto wallet needs a minimum deposit to unlock the staking rewards. It's a guaranteed 20% APY. Can I borrow $800? I'll transfer it back plus interest in 48 hours. I remembered that. I had hesitated. That was my emergency fund for the dentist, but he had been so intense, so promising. He showed me graphs. He used words like blockchain and liquidity pool. I had given him the cash. I stared at the bank statement. ATM, Casino Royale. He hadn't invested it. He had gambled it. I felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't just mooching. It was theft by deception. I typed it into the spreadsheet. Item 42, the crypto lie. Amount $800. I needed to be sure. The false lead arc, my brain whispered. Maybe Casino Royale was the name of the crypto exchange. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. I did what any sane person would do at 2 a.m. I called the casino. River City Casino, this is Darlene. How can I help you? The background noise was a cacophony of slot machine dings and generic pop music. Hi, Darlene, I said, trying to sound official. I'm reviewing some charges on my husband's account. There's an ATM withdrawal from August 15th. I just wanted to confirm, do you guys have a crypto exchange on the premises? Darlene laughed. It was a smoker's laugh, deep and raspy. Honey, we got blackjack, slots, and a buffet that gave me heartburn in '98. We don't have no crypto. Okay, I said. So if he withdrew cash there, he was probably playing the tables, she said. Or he really likes our crab legs. But you can't buy Bitcoin here. Thanks, Darlene, I said. I hung up. The hope I had been nursing, the tiny stupid hope that maybe that $800 was sitting in a digital wallet somewhere, actually growing, died. The money was gone. It was gone into a slot machine or a blackjack dealer's tip jar. There was no staking reward. There was no liquidity pool. There was just a lie and a losing hand. I looked at the spreadsheet. The $800 was highlighted in red. It wasn't an investment. It was a donation to his addiction. I put my head on the desk. The sheer waste of it made me want to scream. I had worked 4 double shifts for that money. I had served roughly 400 cups of coffee, wiped 200 tables, and been sexually harassed by at least 3 truckers to earn that $800, and he had blown it in an hour. By 4 a.m., the spreadsheet was done. I printed it out on my ancient inkjet printer. It groaned and squeaked, printing one line at a time like it was in pain. I hole-punched the pages. I put them in a 3-ring binder I had found in the closet, an old one from high school that still had a sticker of a band I didn't listen to anymore on the cover. I added the screenshots of the texts. I added the Venmo receipts. I added the bank statements with the relevant lines highlighted in neon yellow. I turned to the last page, the summary. Total loans with written promise of repayment, $4,587 total rent unpaid, unrecoverable, $2,800 total emotional damages, infinite. I stared at the number, $4,287. It wasn't a fortune to some people. To Simone, that was probably a handbag. But to me, that was everything. That was a used car that didn't break down. That was a security deposit on a new apartment. That was freedom. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had embezzled my future. I closed the binder. The snap of the rings was the sound of a pistol cocking. Okay, Asher, I whispered to the empty room. Let's do the math. I met Julian the next day on my lunch break. Julian was my one friend who had made it. He worked in cybersecurity, wore hoodies that cost $200, and always smelled like expensive hand sanitizer. We met at a taco truck near my work. I was wearing my uniform, smelling like grease. He was wearing pristine sneakers. I slammed the binder onto the metal picnic table between us. It landed with a heavy thwack, narrowly missing his horchata. Whoa, Julian said, eyeing the binder. Is that a manifesto? It's an audit, I said. Read it. Julian opened the binder. He took a bite of his taco, chewed, and started reading. I watched his face. At first he looked amused. Then, as he turned the pages, his expression tightened. He stopped chewing. He flipped through the Venmo logs. He looked at the Casino Royale cross-reference. He closed the binder gently. Chloe, he said. His voice was serious. This isn't a breakup. I know, I said. It's a disaster. No, he said. This is fraud. This is systematic financial exploitation. He tapped the binder. You have him on record promising repayment for specific amounts on specific dates. I'll pay you back Friday. Loan until checks clear. These aren't gifts. These are contracts. Can I get it back? I asked. I mean, really? Small claims court. Julian said immediately. "The limit in our state is $10,000. You're well under that. You don't need a lawyer to represent you, but you need to be prepared." "I can't afford a lawyer anyway," I said. "I have a friend," Julian said, pulling out his phone. "Ms. Velez. She's not a corporate shark. She's a tenancy lawyer who hates scumbags. She does pro bono consultations for friends. I'll text her." "Julian, I can't pay her." "She accepts payment in baked goods and justice," Julian said. "She's gonna love this binder. It's psychopathically organized. It's beautiful." He looked at me. "You're going to sue him, Chloe. You're going to sue the entitlement right out of him." "Sue him," I repeated. The words felt strange in my mouth, heavy, powerful. "It's not about the money," Julian said. "Well, it is, but it's also about the fact that he thinks you won't do it. He thinks you're the nice girl who takes the hit." I looked at the binder. The nice girl couldn't afford the printer ink for this. Miss Velez's office was above a used bookstore that smelled of dust and old cats. The office itself was tiny, crammed with filing cabinets that looked like they were holding up the ceiling. Miss Eha. Velez was a woman in her 60s with gray hair chopped into a sharp bob and glasses on a chain. She didn't smile when I walked in. She just pointed to a chair. "Julian says you have a binder," she said. I handed it over. She read it in silence. The only sound was the ticking of a clock on the wall and the occasional rustle of paper. After 10 minutes, she looked up. "This is good," she said. "The text messages are key. Verbal contracts are hard to prove. Written acknowledgments of debt? That's gold." She flipped to a specific page. "This one here. The $500 for the merch drop. He says explicitly, 'I will wire this back by the 15th. Do you have the rest of this thread? The part where he acknowledges he didn't pay it back?" "Yes," I said. "It's on my phone." "Show me," she said. I pulled out my phone. My heart rate picked up. I opened the Messages app. I scrolled down to Asher, blocked. I clicked on the thread. I scrolled up. March, April, May, loading. The little wheel spun. "Come on," I muttered. I scrolled some more. The screen jumped. "Message not found." My blood ran cold. "What?" I refreshed. "Message not found." I deleted the thread," I stammered, panic rising in my throat like bile. "The night I purged him, I blocked him, and I might have—" "Oh God, did I delete the conversation?" I looked at Ms. Velez. "I have the screenshot in the binder. Is that enough?" "Screenshots can be faked," Ms. Velez said, her voice stern. "The judge prefers the native app if possible. Did you back it up?" "I don't know." I was hyperventilating now. That $500 was a huge chunk of the claim. If I lost that evidence— "Think, Chloe," Ms. Velez said. "Did you send it to anyone? Did you complain to a friend?" "Mason," I remembered. That night in June. I was crying in the bathroom at work. I had screenshotted the text where Asher said he couldn't pay me back because of supply chain issues, and sent it to Mason asking if Asher was lying. I frantically opened my text thread with Mason. I scrolled back. June 12th. There it was, an image attachment. I clicked it. It opened. High resolution, the entire conversation. Asher. "Babe, supply chain issues. Can't pay the $500 yet. Next week." Me. "You promised today." Asher. "Don't be a nag. I'm good for it." I let out a breath that sounded like a sob. "I have it. I sent it to his friend." "Forward it to your email immediately," Ms. Velez commanded, "and print it out, 3 copies. She took off her glasses. "You're lucky, Chloe. In court, organization is 90% of the battle. You have the truth, but the truth is useless if you can't find it." She handed the binder back. "File the claim tomorrow. The clerk is named Barb. She's grumpy. Bring her a donut. She'll rush the service of process." "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me," Ms. Velez said, finally cracking a small, terrifying smile. "Win." I filed the paperwork the next morning. I brought Barb a maple bar. She grunted, stamped my forms with a heavy, violent thunk, and said, He'll be served in 3 days. That evening, I went to Mrs. Dominguez's apartment. I needed to be around someone who wasn't a lawyer or a liar. Mrs. Dominguez was making empanadas. Her kitchen smelled of cumin, onions, and warmth. It was a physical embrace. "Come, mija," she said, handing me an apron. "You look like you fought a ghost." "I fought the legal system," I said, washing my hands. "I think I won, or at least I filed." We worked in silence for a while, folding the dough over the meat filling, crimping the edges with a fork. It was repetitive, soothing work. Fold, crimp, fold, crimp. "He called my nephew," Mrs. Dominguez said suddenly. I froze. "Asher. Sigh, he tried to get into the building yesterday. He told my nephew he left his intellectual property in your apartment. My nephew told him if he came back, he would introduce his face to the sidewalk." I laughed, but it was shaky. "I'm sorry he's bothering you." Mrs. Dominguez stopped crimping. She looked at me with eyes that were black and deep as wells. "You feel guilty," she said. It wasn't a question. "A little," I admitted. "Taking him to court, it feels mean. He's broke. He's pathetic. Maybe I should just let it go." Mrs. Dominguez wiped her hands on her apron. She reached out and cupped my face. Her hands were warm and rough. "Mija," she said, "listen to me. Love is work. Love is folding the empanadas when you are tired. Love is paying the bills together. Love is showing up." She squeezed my cheeks. "What he did, that is not love. That is theft. He stole your time. He stole your peace. And yes, he stole your money." She let go and went back to the dough. "Do not feel guilty for asking a thief to return what he took. If he stole from a store, he would go to jail. Because he stole from a woman who loved him, he thinks he should get a pass?" She scoffed. "Pfft. Make him pay, Clara. Make him pay for every tear." "Chloe," I corrected automatically, though she always called me Clara. "Chloe, Clara, same thing." She waved a flour-covered hand. "You are the one with the fork now. You crimp the edges. You close the deal." I looked at the empanada in my hand. I pressed the fork down hard. "Crimp." "Okay," I said. "I will." 2 weeks before the court date, Mason called me. I almost didn't answer. Mason was the Switzerland of our friend group, neutral to a fault, which usually meant he sided with the loudest person. "Hey, Chloe," he said. He sounded awkward. I could hear traffic in the background. "Hi, Mason," I said. I didn't stop folding my laundry. "Look, I'm calling because Asher is in a bad way, man," Mason said. "He's sleeping on his brother's couch. He lost the gig at the marketing firm because Simone called them." "Good for Simone," I said. "Yeah, well, look, he got the court summons. He's freaking out. He wants to know if you'll drop it if he agrees to a payment plan." "I offered him a payment plan 3 months ago when I asked for my rent money," I said. "He told me to stop being transactional." "He knows he messed up," Mason pressed. "But court? That goes on his record. It messes up his credit. He's trying to launch a startup, Chloe. A judgment like this kills his investability." I stopped folding. I held a pair of my own socks I had bought, washed and dried with my own money. "His investability?" I repeated. "Mason, he stole $4,500 from me. He lied about everything. He was sleeping with Simone and a hostess named Riley while I was working double shifts to buy him truffle fries." I know, Mason sighed. "But be the bigger person here. You're better than this. You're doing okay, right? You have the job. He has nothing." This was it. The trap. The societal pressure to be the bigger person, the cool girl, the one who absorbs the pain so the man doesn't have to face the consequences. "Mason," I said, my voice shaking slightly, "being the bigger person is why I'm in debt. Being the bigger person is why I have carpal tunnel from carrying trays to pay for his lifestyle. I'm done being big. I'm going to be exact." "Chloe, tell him to save his pitch for the judge," I said, "and tell him to wear a suit. I hear Judge Judy hates hoodies." I hung up. My hand was trembling, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. November 14th, courtroom 3B. The room smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. The fluorescent lights hummed a low, maddening B-flat. I sat at the plaintiff's table. I was wearing my funeral dress, a modest black A-line, and a blazer I got from Goodwill. The binder sat in front of me. Asher walked in at 8:58 a.m. He looked diminished. He was wearing a suit that was clearly his brother's. The sleeves were too long, swallowing his hands. He wasn't with a lawyer. He was alone. He looked at me. He tried to give me a sad puppy dog smile. The "remember how much we loved each other" smile. I looked through him like he was a window pane. I opened the binder. "All rise," the bailiff droned. The judge walked in. It wasn't Ms. Valles, obviously. It was a man named Judge Holloway. He looked like he had wanted to be a poet but settled for small claims court to pay the bills. He looked tired. "Docket number 402, he muttered, shuffling papers. "Smith versus Reeves. Unpaid loans." He looked over his glasses. "Miss Smith, you're claiming $4,587? "Yes, Your Honor," I said. My voice was steady. "Mr. Reeves," the judge turned to Asher, "do you dispute this debt?" Asher stood up. He adjusted his oversized jacket. "Your Honor, I dispute the characterization of the debt. Chloe, Miss Smith and I were partners. We lived together. We shared a life. The money she's talking about, it was a partnership. I contributed in other ways, my intellectual property, my potential." "Did you pay rent?" Judge Holloway asked, not looking up. "Well, not in cash, but—" "Did you pay utilities?" "I handled the logistics of the household." "Ms. Smith," the judge turned to me. "Evidence?" I stood up. I walked the binder to the bailiff, who handed it to the judge. "Tab 1, Your Honor," I said. Text messages dated March through September. In each instance, Mr. Reeves asks for a specific amount and promises repayment by a specific date. He uses the words loan, borrow, and pay back. The judge flipped the pages. Silence filled the room. Asher shifted on his feet. "Tab 2, I continued. "Bank statements showing the transfers matching the text timestamps." Tab 3, the text message where he admits to gambling the $800 he claimed was for a crypto investment. The judge stopped flipping. He looked at the gambling text. He looked at Asher. "Mr. Reeves," the judge said, "you told the plaintiff you were investing in liquidity pools?" "It was a high-risk investment vehicle," Asher argued, sweating now. "The market fluctuated." "At the Casino Royale?" the judge asked. "Did the market fluctuate at the roulette wheel?" Brief laughter from the gallery. Asher turned red. "Look, Your Honor," Asher said, his voice rising. "She's just bitter because I broke up with her. This is a revenge suit. She dumped a box of my stuff at my friend's house. She's vindictive." "Did you borrow the money?" the judge asked simply. "It was a relationship," Asher shouted. "You don't keep score in a relationship." Judge Holloway took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Mr. Reeves," he said quietly, "in the eyes of the law, a loan is a loan. If you borrow money with a promise to repay and you do not repay, it is theft. The romantic nature of your relationship does not dissolve contract law." He banged the gavel. It made me jump. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $4,587, plus court costs. "Mr. Reeves, you have 30 days to remit payment or wage garnishment proceedings will begin. Next case." It took less than 15 minutes. I stood there. I felt numb. It wasn't a fireworks moment. It was bureaucratic. It was boring. It was justice. I walked out of the courthouse into the blinding noon sun. The wind was cold, but the sun was warm. I was fumbling for my keys when I heard footsteps behind me, scuffing, hurried footsteps. "Chloe, wait!" I turned. Asher was jogging toward me, clutching his paperwork. He looked frantic. "Are you happy?" he demanded, stopping a few feet away. "Are you happy now? You ruined me, Chloe. I have to move back to Ohio. My brother kicked me out because of the garnishment notice that's coming. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I remembered how much I used to love him, how I used to watch him sleep and think he was the most beautiful thing in the world, how I convinced myself his potential was real. Now I just saw a guy in an ill-fitting suit who owed me money. I'm not happy, Asher, I said. I'm solvent. There's a difference. Was it worth it? He sneered. For $4,000? You blew up everything we had for $4,000? I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Asher, I said. I didn't blow it up. I just stopped paying for the facade. And yeah, it was worth every penny. I unlocked my car door. You're cold, he said, shaking his head. You used to be sweet. I used to be a doormat, I said. I like this better. I got in the car. I started the engine. I didn't watch him in the rearview mirror as I drove away. I turned on the radio. They were playing a stupid pop song. I sang along. 3 months later, I'm writing this from my new apartment. It's smaller than the old one, but the elevator works, and I live alone. The money comes in irregular chunks. The wage garnishment takes it directly from his paycheck at the sporting goods store in Ohio, where he now works. Every time I get a notification, 150-word deposit, state garnishment. I buy myself something small, a plant, a good coffee, a book. I quit the diner. I took a job as a receptionist at Ms. Velez's firm. She liked my binder organization so much, she offered me a trial run. It pays better, and I get to sit down. I'm taking a welding class on Thursday nights. Mrs. Dominguez thinks it's dangerous, but I like the sparks. I like building things that are hard and permanent. I haven't dated anyone new. I'm not ready. I'm too busy dating myself. Taking myself to movies, buying myself dinner, and actually enjoying the silence of my own home. Sometimes I look at the spreadsheet. I kept it. It's not a record of debt anymore. It's a diploma. It proves I survived. So, to anyone reading this who is staring at a lost wallet that isn't lost, or a text message that feels off, check the nightstand, check the receipts, and then check your worth. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.